And I say of late, over the last year and a half, because they actually had a group of ethicists that was there, and they started sort of raising the flag about some of these problems a few years ago, and Google said in a simple paraphrased way, yeah, we don't really want to hear about it, and if you keep talking about it, we're going to fire you, and sure enough, they did.
Yes! That is fantastic. It is Nile Nickle. He joins us today here on our big broadcast. So, Nile, besides all this crazy AI stuff, what else is going on?
Well, yeah, AI is just taking over so much of the news. In fact, almost everything that I have today is talking about AI. But you know what? We'll give you something a little bit different. Turns out that U.S. regulators targeted a number of banks and Wall Street firms that failed to maintain proper and adequate electronic records of employee communications. They have to keep records of all of that. Well, it turns out the employees started to use things like Signal and WhatsApp that basically doesn't keep any record, is untrackable, and needless to say, the U.S. regulators announced a combination of $540 million, $549 million actually, against all these firms. You'd never guess who the biggest firm that they went after was.
Who?
Wells Fargo.
Ah!
So it turns out that Wells Fargo was certainly the biggest one, but let's not leave out the other big players like J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup. So they're all in there, and as a matter of fact, when they totaled up all the fines that they laid down, totaled just a little bit over $2 billion. You'd think that they'd get better at this and maybe not get into all of these problems with the government, but needless to say, they seem to like it.
That's awesome. It is Nile Nickle. He's with us today. You can find him on the old Twitter machine, Nile Nickle. And Nile, what's the next story you got for us, my friend?
Well, let's not forget, as you mentioned, the old Twitter machine. It doesn't exist anymore. Remember,
yes.
It's X now.
It's
so
the
you've
X
got to
machine.
Get me on X. So now it's okay to contact your ex, right? Just saying.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the deep fake technology? Does that ring
Yes,
a bell with you?
I know a little bit about it. I know that Alex Jones is terribly concerned about it, and he flips out on a regular basis. I don't really notice any difference in my life, but apparently there are people in the world that do these deep fakes. What is going on with the deep fake today?
So just for those that might not be aware of it, deep fakes are basically videos with audio that are completely generated. They're AI generated. And they're getting so good that they're very hard to detect if it's real video or if it's a deep fake. And there's a lot of companies, Adobe, Intel are two of them, that have been pursuing technology to identify deep fake technology. Well, it turns out that Intel thinks that maybe they have a solution. In fact, they partnered with a company that's named the system Fake Catcher, and it is an Intel sort of division. But what they're doing is they're doing a couple of things. They're looking at blood flow in your face, because videos typically, are a facial shot, and they are analyzing proper changes in blood flow that in a real video exist, in a deep fake do not. However, the video has to be good quality, but that's happening quite frequently today. So it turns out that, maybe they've got a little bit of something here. So far, they claim it's about 96% accurate, but they're also looking at the way your eyes move. And it says that when they look at deep fakes and the way they're created and they look at real videos, there are noticeable difference in eye movement. So between your eye movement and blood flow, they think they're getting down to be able to detect some of these deep fakes and be able to label them as such.
We have got a great guest with us today. The fantastic Nile Nickle is with us. He joins us live here on our big program. So, Nile, what else you got for us, my friend?
Well, the use of facial recognition technology has been exploding as well. Another AI story when you get down to it. But it turns out that facial recognition has been pretty imprecise, especially with people of color. Big story came out of Detroit just earlier this week, actually. A woman was arrested. She was 8 months pregnant. She was detained for 11 hours, questioned, had her iPhone seized for evidence before being released. But they charged her and arrested her based on facial recognition technology. And once they got into doing the investigation, they found out very quickly it wasn't her. But, she's pretty offended being 8 months pregnant and having to wait in a police station and being questioned and stressed and everything else for 11 hours. So she's filed a lawsuit. But the interesting thing is this is the sixth incident in recent history, but the third specifically in Detroit. All of the six individuals that have been falsely accused and arrested and all of that have been black, so people of color. And, police agencies are trying to use this to be able to clear their caseload without doing deep investigation. And, right now they're seeing more and more bias, so more and more places around the country are now trying to outlaw the use of this technology for police investigation work. I think it has its place, but certainly it is just a possibility. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person should go out and arrest the person. Maybe they should do a little bit of investigation first.
You've got a great guest with us today. Of course, our fantastic friend Nile Nickle is with us, the independent freelance science, technology, and social media reporter. And he's with us today here on our big, big broadcast. So, Nile, what is the final story you've got for us today?
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about sort of the superstar of the current times, which is Taylor Swift. And Taylor was recently in Seattle, and obviously her fans get up and they dance to the music and all of that. Well, it turns out that the dancing and jumping at her July the 22nd, 23rd tour stops caused seismic activity similar to a 2.3 magnitude earthquake at the location, which was Lumen Field, where her concerts were being held. Set a record because it turns out there was prior evidence of this seismic activity from fans, but it was a Seahawks game that created the equivalent of about a 2.0 earthquake during a touchdown celebration. So Taylor now holds the record for starting more earthquakes than any other music star on the planet, along with many of the other accolades that she now holds.
We have got Nile Nickle with us today. Nile, before we let you go, how do we get in touch with you on social media, the websites, everything?
Well, go to that famous Xbox now, the X system, formerly known as Twitter. Look me up, at Nile Nickle, and that's Nile like the river, nickel like the coin. You can see all the things we talk about, many more, plus you get the opportunity to chat with me.
Well, Nile, I really appreciate you making time for us today. I look forward to chatting with you soon. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
It's always a pleasure.
Appreciate it. There he goes. Fantastic. Nile Nickle. And lots of things going on. We have got a break coming up. Incoming, as they say. And when we come back, we have got our next guest who is locked and loaded and ready for bear. Coming up. Back here live on over 50 plus AM FM stations across the country.